The St. Charles County Veterans Museum is a 501c3 nonprofit business. The museum would not exist without the donations of our generous community. Your donations ensure the museum continues to share and preserve the stories of our veterans. Would you like to be part of something special? To donate, visit sccvetsmuseum.org and click on Donate. The Dog Tag Podcast may at times cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, violence, severe mental illness, sex, drugs, and alcohol addiction. You are advised to refrain from watching or listening to the Dog Tag Podcast if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. Neither the company, host, director, or guests shall at any time be liable for the content covered, causing offense, distress, or other reaction. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. The primary purpose of the Dog Tag Podcast is to educate. The views, information, or opinions expressed on the Dog Tag Podcast are solely the views of the individuals or guests involved and by no means represent absolute facts. The Dog Tag does not accept responsibility for their views or comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's your good old buddies again, Dom and Jason. Today is Wednesday, October 25th. We are back. We've missed you so much. Jason, I missed you. How are you, sir?
I missed you too, sir. I'm doing really, really well.
Guys, we had to take a little break. Some small vacation type of events we had going on, doing some work and staying busy, but we missed you guys, and we do apologize a little bit for not. But sometimes we got to do what we got to do. So we're back and better than ever. We are rested. Jason, are you rested?
I am rested.
Okay, good. We are back, and we wanted to talk to you guys tonight. So we are here at the wonderful St. Charles County Veterans Museum. Again, if you haven't seen this place, you got to come by and check it out. We were coming together with some plans and what we're going to do. Jason, what are we doing here tonight?
Well, first, welcome back to the Dog Tag Podcast, guys. Dominic, so glad that you're here with me. It's getting that time of year, Dominic. We're about to experience Veterans Day on November 11th. So
yeah,
we wanted to talk to the audience a little bit about what Veterans Day means to us. What is Veterans Day? And how can we remember veterans not only on Veterans Day, but throughout the whole year? And my favorite place to be is right here in this museum. Some other people might have some other places to be, some things that they like to do to remember the veterans in their lives or that were meaningful to them.
Yeah, what do you guys do? How do you celebrate? If you want, let us know. Hit us up on YouTube. Leave us some comments. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Where else are we at? Spotify. We're freaking everywhere, bro.
Yep, Podbean. We're not on Apple yet, but we're on all kinds of different things. You can hit up the museum website, and you can see Facebook. Yep, you'll be able to see, not see, but actually listen to this podcast. You can go on the Facebook page of the St. Charles County Veterans Museum, and you can view what's going on around, what events are happening, big stuff coming up,
yeah.
And there is a big event coming up, I believe, on November 17th.
Yeah.
You can look at the website there for more information.
I'm gonna put my finest duds on, dude.
Are you?
Oh
okay.
Yeah, I'm getting dressed up. When I get a chance to get dressed up, I like it, and I got a nice suit, so I'm always pumped to wear it.
Hey man, I semi-dress up every day, but I do like to put on the extra special duds.
Yeah. Sometimes it's necessary.
That's true.
Hey, I got one more thing, too. You guys go to, probably Facebook would be easiest, right?
Yep.
Okay, go there. I was thinking about this. Jason and I are always kind of brainstorming about what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, and who can we talk about. There are tons of stories. I mean, honestly, if you've never been here, this place, in front of every display, there is a binder. Is it a binder? You'd call it a binder.
Yeah, it's a binder.
Okay.
With a story.
Right? So every veteran in here, this is what we do, is we keep stories alive. We keep memories alive through stories. If there's someone your Uncle Jack, and this guy is the coolest guy you've ever met, and he was in at this time, and it doesn't even matter if he's some war hero. That's not what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. But message us on our Facebook, St. Charles County Veterans Museum on Facebook. And if you've got somebody you're like, man, somebody needs to hear this, man or woman, no problems in either way. We just want to talk and interview and find out what these awesome people in our country have done, are doing now, and I'm sure people like that are still serving their country and Veterans Day and all kinds of cool stuff, doing the wreaths at Jefferson Barracks if you're here in St. Louis, stuff like that. So make sure you hit us up, man. Keep in contact with us because we would love to interact with our audience. We're growing a lot now, and we're always looking for some more cool stuff to be doing and some more stories to tell.
And if you're a veteran or if you're a spouse of a veteran or a family member of a veteran and you want to come be on the podcast and share your story,
absolutely,
share their story, we would love to have you.
Gold star.
Yep. You can go right to the, like Dom said, you can go to Facebook or you can go to the museum website, which we can give a little bit later on the episode here. Jim, who is the director here, he's the guy that helps show everybody around here. The volunteers show everybody around. He writes the majority of the stories. He would love to have more stories. And as we grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger, we want to house all those stories and be able to remember all those stories. Like Dom, like we say around here, as long as we remember them, they're never forgotten.
Always with us.
Yeah, they're always with us.
Yeah.
So let me read a little bit of something real quick, Dom, if you don't mind. I just want to share with the public.
Wait, I got a question
for
you.
Sure, good.
When did Veterans Day come about?
Well, good question.
Funny I asked.
Good, funny you asked. Well, it started out in 1938. Okay.
So 38, what are we doing? We are pre-World War II.
Right.
Okay.
So after World War I, Armistice Day was created to really remember and honor the veterans of World War I. Okay.
I got to tell you, I've never heard that word. Are you going to explain that one? Because I want to know.
Well, Armistice Day was just to celebrate, to be dedicated to celebrate world peace, and thereafter be celebrated as Armistice Day. Because after World War I, they didn't think there was going to be another World War.
We were all hoping not.
Right. Then World War II happened, and some Korea stuff, which gets forgotten a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy, but some of the bravest men, some of the best stories, some of our finest were in Korea, and we never want to forget those guys, ever.
Hey, can I hold you up? I absolutely 100% never want. I just looked this up. Armistice is an agreement made by opposing sides in a war to stop fighting for a certain time, a truce.
Absolutely.
So that the word armistice, folks, that's what that means. I already knew that. I was just educating you.
Well, the 83rd Congress in 1954, at the urging of veteran organizations, service organizations, they wanted this to be more broad, and so they wanted to drop the name armistice and go with veterans, the word veterans. So with approval of the legislation on June 1st, 1954, November 11th became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. A footnote there is later that same year on October 8th, Dwight Eisenhower, our president, issued the first Veterans Day proclamation, which stated, in order to ensure proper and widespread observance of this anniversary, all veterans organizations, and the entire citizenry will wish to join hands in the common purpose. Toward this end, I am designating the Administrator of the Veterans Affairs as Chairman of the Veterans Day National Committee, which shall include such other persons as the Chairman may select, and which will coordinate at the national level necessary planning for this observance. I am also requesting the heads of all departments and agencies of the executive branch of the government to assist the National Committee in every way possible. There was some intent behind that.
Yeah, that wasn't like a written on a cocktail napkin.
Exactly. Dom, let's move away from the reading of what this is now that we've done that, and really talk about what Veterans Day looks like to the general public in America from our lens and from your personal lens. I'll talk about my personal lens, and then how we can move towards what this act of 1954 was really intended to do.
So all these things we don't like to talk about politics and stuff on here, and this doesn't go with that, but it's weird to me that the interactions I have, let's say at Quick Trip, it's like, for the most part, all very positive. I don't like, maybe that's just here in St. Charles County, Missouri, and it's a great place to live and all that stuff. But like, I don't feel a lot of friction about things that are going on in society, right? Like maybe you would in New York or LA or something, where it's like, we're kind of Midwest, just kind of chill out people here. And
they call it Midwest nice is what they call it.
Right, exactly. And I know that's not behind all closed doors. I get all that stuff, but it's like, I don't know what the general public is doing, but it seems like, for instance, our 4th of July Day parade, like you've never seen that. I didn't know that many people lived here.
Right.
Not that we're in some 1,500 people town, but
they're lining the streets.
Thousands of people.
Getting there early.
Happy and all like, so I'd have to say my outlook as far as the general public goes around me and my window of sight it's all pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. I live down by the Veterans Memorial Walk right at T.R. Hughes and Veterans Memorial Road. And they always, Memorial Day, every holiday that is celebrating or recognizing the veteran community at all, there's always a whole thing. And that place is packed and, you know, the police have to run traffic and everything. So it's like, from my lens, I think I have a really good outlook as far as the public goes.
Yeah, our region is so supportive of the military, of veterans.
Does that have anything to do with, you think, and I don't, it's not rhetorical because I'm asking you a question, but it's like, since way back, right, when you read about a lot of people, I'm not saying that the coasts don't have plenty of awesome people, but it's like these Midwest boys and girls, there wasn't a whole lot going on around here way back in the day, right? So it was like for them to get out of here, and then the GI Bill, whatever, if they wanted to go to school once that came around. But it was like these farm boys, you know, they were kind of getting on that bus and going. So it's like, it feels like a lot of that stuff comes from right here in the Midwest, you know?
Right.
And it just feels really kind of organic and normal. So it's like everybody just seems really supportive and patriotic and all that. It's nice. It feels nice.
You know, when I think about Veterans Day, Dom, for me, through my lens, is an opportunity to reflect on the sacrifice, no matter how small, made by an individual who, the day they signed on the dotted line, signed a blank check up to include their life, right?
Sure.
Whether that happened or not, every job has ups and downs, but in the military, just because I've been around the military a lot and am a military dependent, former military dependent,
right?
Military people, there's a song out there, a country song that I really love. It's like, you know, you can't call in sick on Monday when the work week's been too tough. You know what I mean?
It doesn't work.
You know, so you don't make a ton of money in the military. There's bills you can't pay out. There's a couple lines in there that I love, and all that stuff is true, right?
It's got nothing to do with the paycheck.
Right. Like, no matter why you signed up, whatever the motive was, you know, you signed up.
Well, let me tell you this. This is a little insider info. In my day, 2001, 2004, when we were doing all the beneficiary stuff, it was $250,000. So like, clearly, I don't know how that pans out if something happens to you or my guys that I lost and stuff like that. But it's like, you see that number at 18 years old and you're signing that paperwork because if something happens to you a week after 9/11 when I left for boot camp, if something happens to you being infantry, mom's going to get a check for $250. So it's like, and I am making light of this because that's how I operate, but it's like, that's still not a whole bunch of money. You know what I mean?
I think what is a life worth, right?
I think I'm worth more than a quarter, but you know.
And you know, when my dad died, my dad was killed in Desert Storm, but right before that, the death benefit to a spouse was $50,000.
See, that's rough.
You know what they upped it to during that time frame was $100,000. Think about that.
Really?
$100,000, man.
I gotta say,
and it's not all about. We're not talking about this because it's about the money, but
of course not.
What you're signing up for, man, you got to think about the ramifications, about your family, who you're leaving behind, what the thing is, and so the point of that is that you sign that blank check.
Yeah, man, and it's not like, hey, listen, if worst case scenario, at least I know that generations of my family will have that to fall back. No, so. Right. It's not selfless because you're doing it obviously for others, but it's definitely not for some come up to get a new Tacoma or something. You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Exactly.
We're not getting a house off of this check. So it's I mean, you know, I can only speak for myself and my brothers, but I know that that's not why anybody. No, college wasn't, to the people I know and am very close with, college wasn't like, hey man, this is an easy trip to college. It's like, this is fucking tough just for college. You know, you could just go to community college and be in debt like everybody else.
Absolutely.
So like, this is it's another level of wanting to do something that you do not know the outcome. It is not guaranteed. Whether you could be a mechanic. I mean, things happen all over the place. It's just like out here in the world, you know, not just police officers suffer, you know what I mean? And so
I knew a guy changing a tire on a plane, overfilled it, blew, took his arm right off.
It's a wrap. I mean, you know, so it not necessarily, it doesn't matter. And that's what we're saying is that, it doesn't matter your job, your gender, any of that stuff. I mean, you're doing this thing so Jason and I can sit here and have this podcast. So-and-so can be at the park playing, you know, and it's a very selfless act, on each individual. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to be thought about for sure.
Yeah. So Dom, we were, you know, just chatting before we got started tonight on the show.
Our pre-interview.
And I was just asking you a little bit about, you know, what, you know, when you think about Veterans Day and your family and things of that nature, you were mentioning a couple things to me. What kind of things happen in your world around Veterans Day?
What has kept me from, and I know that this is healthy, but what has kept me from just being a recluse and kind of inverting in and just kind of like, I'm going to stay inside today is my kids. Since they were little and I had conversations with them for the first couple of years, I'm like, listen, I don't want you guys to think that I need you to do this for me. If you guys want me to come to school today and be a part of this thing, there's nothing more I'd like to do because it's something you want. I just want you to know that this is not mandatory. I do not expect. And they're like, no, Dad, we love it. You know? So I was telling Jason, I think I've missed one and maybe two. And those were like work circumstances that there was no one to cover, blah, blah, blah. But, I know on one occasion my boss let me leave for 2 hours. You know, we had a guy there that could cover for me, and he let me leave just to go be at school with my kids and do the whole thing. And so that is, when I'm looking at my schedule for the year, that's one of the ones where I'm like, okay, cool, I'll be. But now my kids are 6th, 7th grade. I mean, this is only going to go on for so much longer. So it's a complete highlight of my day. And to see the way that these schools, what they do. My kids' school, for example, there's an assembly thing. I think you know, at the elementary school, you stood up and you said who you are, what your rank is, and who your children are, and they stand up and everybody claps. At their middle school now, the whole school is outside on either side of the hallway, and after that assembly, the children who are there without family members who are veterans, and the teachers, the whole staff, everyone's standing outside, lined down every hallway, and there's like too many of them in the school. But they're all standing there like with flags and signs and rounds of applause, and they like everybody wants to shake your hand, and it's like so and so these guys want to join the Marine. And I mean, it's just like, wow, you know, it'll take you back a little bit, because to me, and I know that again, I can only speak for the guys I know, but it's like we don't need or expect any of this. So for you guys to be standing out here, whether you're getting 15 minutes out of class or not, it's still really nice. You know, it's a cool thing to do on Veterans Day. Get to hang with the kids. They get out of class for a little bit, and then I go on about my day. But the wife always has something really nice to say, and we'll go have lunch or something like that, you know. So it's really in my house and with my family that I kind of celebrate, you know.
And it's amazing, man. You know, kids, I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like your kids are very proud of you, man.
They are.
And, you know, if I'm thinking about myself as an 11-year-old, you know, and after my dad was killed, and just always wanting people to know about my dad because I was so proud of him.
Absolutely,
you know?
Yeah.
And you being able to be honored by your kids, I'm sure, I can just put myself in their shoes, brings them so much joy to say, hey, this is my dad.
I can feel it coming from you. Yeah, that's special. Yeah. I never even thought about it that way.
Yeah. So
because they're lucky enough to be able to do that. So
they're lucky enough to do it, but they're so proud of him, and they want their friends to know who their dad is and what he did. And I mean, we need more of that, man. We need kids to be proud of their parents.
I agree.
Especially, maybe not especially, but we need to make sure we carry this on when it comes to veterans and not let our kids forget.
Yeah.
Not just our kids, but the kids in our community about what it takes to make a sacrifice of time for their country,
of course,
of self. I mean, because you don't just put your life on the line, but you're putting your body on the line.
Right.
You're putting your mental health on the line. There's all kinds of aspects that you're putting on the line, right? That you've sacrificed not just during your time of service, but that is prolonged. And that's all veterans. All veterans have something that they take with them when they leave the service.
Yeah.
And so we got to honor that and honor these veterans and remember them every day, in my opinion, but at least on Veterans Day. And so, like we were talking about before we got on the show here, is that, in the corporate world and maybe some other places, Veterans Day is a holiday.
Sure.
Right. So you're looking at that on your calendar as an employee. Well,
woohoo.
I speak for myself and I'm saying, hey man, it's a day off, right?
Yeah. And
we tell people that, hey, you get 12 bank holidays a year. You get this, and Veterans Day is one of them. And I'm glad that I'm in the circumstance now in my office where I can really bring attention to veterans causes and things like that.
Yeah.
But what happens in the general public, and that's kind of what we want people to think about, is what do we do on these days where our veterans are remembered specifically, right? And you think about Veterans Day, Memorial Day, Armed Services Day, and what are we actually doing? Is this just a barbecue, just a day off? Are we remembering these stories? Are we contemplating what people have done to secure our freedom, whether it's with their life or with their work or with their service? I mean, everything that goes into that. So tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about, Dom.
Well, I want to go back to something real quick. That thing, what you were saying about the kids, my kids, they didn't come around until 8 years afterwards, right? So I can only imagine the families of active, like these guys that have done 8, 10, 12 tours, like that's another level, Right. So you're right. For my kids to be stoked that, and of course it's part of my family, and a lot of my daily regiment, the way I operate, making my bed first, like a lot of those things are directly an effect of being a United States Marine, of course. But so they hear about it often, and it's not like I want them to do anything in particular, but this is, this is so-and-so, and this is what he did, and this is what we did together. And so we talk about that stuff and try to keep it, for the most part, in a positive light. But also I want to point out, it's important to be someone that those kids are proud of now as well, and I think that, for your family to look back and go, man, my dad did this when he was 18 or 20 or whatever it was, that's great. But it's like, and I'm talking to everybody here, man. You guys know, if you've been listening, I made my way through addiction and still dealing with mental health stuff all the time. And so it, by no means am I some guy podcasting telling you how to live your life. But, if you think that maybe you're operating less than, your best, let's get up and try to fix that and give these kids that thing to where, because they're supposed to be that proud of you. You're supposed to be their hero. Iron Man, shit, that's an awesome movie.
Right.
But I know you, Jason, and we talked about your dad, and we're going to get Jason to talk about his dad, folks. Trust me, because it's on my radar. But no other guy in the world is more important or hero to you than your father.
Absolutely.
And that's so important for the general public, our own families, anybody, fill in the blank, that they see us in that light, right? So as a veteran myself, like, I have to hold myself to that standard, because if I have one bad interaction with somebody, say whatever at the gas station or wherever it is, fucking how dare you not say Happy Veterans Day to me? Well, that's not nice to, you know what I mean? It's not, and everyone doesn't know that you're some veteran either. So you got to you have to play the role still, you know, and in the Marine Corps, we're taught once a Marine, always a Marine. Well, I did not act like a Marine for a lot of years. There are times in my day that I don't always hoorah and semper fi around, but for the most part, like, want my kids to know that it's not just this uniform in this museum here that I used to wear. And it's not just this when Gomez comes to town. You know, I want them to be proud of me for what I did then and still what I'm doing now. So let's all get better and be better. And
you're always going to be a veteran.
Right. So but you have to act accordingly.
Yes.
Also, you know, because you asked about the public, there are probably a lot. I know there are a lot of good examples of reasons why the public might have had a run-in with some fucking asshole who, because he fought in a war or something, thinks he demands this like pedestal to stand on, and that's not fair either. You know, like those people probably didn't mean anything bad by it. But you know, I think the public needs to see us in the best eye. Okay, in the Marine Corps, if you go down to San Diego and get in a fight, they don't say, oh, these couple guys got in a college barroom brawl, no big. They say, Marines at it again. What are we going to do about Camp Pendleton? It seems to be getting out. You have to, you know.
A different standard?
Yeah, absolutely. And I only speak for the Marine Corps because that's all I am. Army, Navy, Air Force, we all, you know, so you have to keep that higher standard to let the public know we are worthy of them not just thinking this is a day off to sleep in or anything. And maybe their neighbor is Mr. Reynolds and he fought and this and that. And, you know, maybe you could just bring his trash can up to the house or something. You know, it's little things like that, because a lot of guys that I know, myself probably included, like we were just talking about, if I didn't have those kids doing this, I would probably, probably would be more just internalized and maybe text a couple buddies, but the phone doesn't ring a whole lot on days like that. I think it's in my world, most of the guys are kind of just feeling it, going through it. And, it's hard for us to celebrate. That word is not the way that most of us operate.
So if I was talking to a group of people, because I'm not a veteran,
right,
and I was giving them an education, so to speak, what would be in your mind, from your perspective, the appropriate way to say that? So I wouldn't say let's celebrate Veterans Day. Maybe, is that what you're saying? What would I say?
That's an individual thing. Remember, let's
honor
would probably be a pretty good one. Let's what's the word when you acknowledge? Let's acknowledge. You know, because unless a person is wearing a grunt style T-shirt or Marine Corps or Army or Air Force, it's just another person at the grocery store anyway, right? So maybe they're not looking to be walked up to and have this whole thing. But if you know a person, I would think this is just me. If I'm out and about and I see somebody and they know who I am, I would think it would be a perfect interaction between you and I. Hey, man, I don't mean to bother you too much. Just want to say Happy Veterans Day, man. Thanks I'm glad you're home. Stuff like that. And
okay.
Welcome home is very much a Vietnam thing. I say that to anybody wearing a Vietnam like hat or anything. Welcome home is a big one for those guys in particular. But we're glad you're home. Something kind of subtle, not too like one way or another. To me personally, is kind of the. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming over and saying that to me, brother. You didn't have to do that. You know, thank you. And then I'd leave that interaction going, it was fucking worth it. This is a country that I'm proud to be living in and fighting for or fought for, you know?
Yep.
So I think it's a lot of tone. And then, but again, man, I know who I am and where I've been and what I've done and all that stuff. But if we walk past each other and just say good morning, I can't go, well, that fucking guy, I can't believe he wouldn't say happy. You know what I mean? So you can't hold the public to this standard if they're unknowing, if they just don't know. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're being rude necessarily. And some people might have had an interaction with a veteran that their grandpa was, don't say that kind of shit to veterans. They don't want to hear that. So they just don't, because that was one thing that they had heard in their life. You know, you just never know.
And everybody's going to, like you said, it's so individual. Everybody has a different perspective about what a veteran is, or especially if they haven't been around veterans or military people or anything like that in their life, they can only think about what they see on the news or what they see on TV. And
some guys want to drink some beers and go to a turkey shoot, and that's the way they do it. And I think that's great. Well, who am I to tell anybody how to do their thing? But yeah, I mean, if you can, if it's at all possible, just maybe think about it. And, you know, if you know somebody, say, hey, and we appreciate it or something.
Yeah.
Or nothing, but saying something ignorant and going off about your politics and how you didn't believe in Bush or whoever it was, that just try to avoid that for one day, because nobody wants to hear your shit anyways.
Exactly.
Much less a guy who's lost friends or given his time or whatever the case is. Like, leave that one in the house, just in general, I think. But on days like that, those men and women don't want to hear your fucking story.
You know, man, when I think back to my childhood, you know, I grew up in a mostly military community, even though I didn't live on like a base or anything like that.
You're much more military than I am. I'll let you know that right now, dude. You have a much more military life than I ever did.
Well, I grew up in Florida, the Gulf Coast of Florida. Okay, that's kind of where my growing up years were in my adolescence.
Poor guy.
And my dad was alive. He was a military officer, an Air Force officer, and we lived next door to a retired, I believe it was Army, and a Vietnam veteran. Okay, and he's not alive anymore. I'm gonna say his name. His name is Steve Tuthill.
What's up, Steve?
And there were many nights, man, that this guy would be in his lawn chair in his driveway because he couldn't sleep, man, having too many bad dreams, you know what I mean?
Really?
And that is the cost associated with signing on that dotted line.
Of course,
you know, and the most beautiful man you could ever meet, very compassionate, had rescue dogs. I mean, just a beautiful neighbor.
Yeah.
I can remember he taught me how to fly kites with a fishing rod. It was incredible. But I digress a little bit. But my point is that this guy, man, you know, my dad would talk to him, and my dad was a big studier of Vietnam history because my dad loved history, and one of his biggest things was if you don't remember history or study history, you're bound to repeat it. You know what I mean? So, but
what are we doing?
But this guy, Steve, man, he had a beautiful family, but it was just the cost of war, man, and a great veteran. He in his professional life after the military, he did amazing things for the community. In his second career, but I miss that guy, you know.
Of course.
I'll be 44 this year, and I knew him from the ages of like 6 to 12, you know what I mean? And he made a huge impact.
That kind of an impact, yeah. And
when I think of Veterans Day, I remember guys like that.
Yeah, of course. What's funny is all you were seeing was the real Steve before Vietnam. Like that's just who he is, who he was, you know. And then those glimpses of, you know, so all the stuff of not being able to sleep and like being in a lawn chair by himself, you know, his wife wants her husband in bed and all that. Like he's taking that time to not make others like around him, his family, like suffer through his stuff with him.
Right.
But then what he's doing with the neighbor kids and like what he's doing for the community, that's who he actually is. So it's tough when the Steve that you know is a man who flies kites and helps the community and is this great person, good husband, good father, all these other things, right? But there's that other side that he's intentionally just like, you stay back here for a while, it's like I try to explain it like the battery on my Doberman. It's so high strung, but once that battery wears out, it's nap time, right? So like, have that other person from Vietnam, because Steve was acting in that way. And most people are acting in that way because they have been so close to death so many times at such an age that they were years away from being a fully developed male. That's like 26 years old, right?
Right.
So you're a child in the jungles of Vietnam, in the World War II, in the desert, in the wherever you're at. But when life almost gets taken from you in such a real way, it's like, you know how good it felt for him to show you how to fly a kite.
Yeah.
I mean, as small and as insignificant as that seems, that probably was like so huge to him too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's tough because when life almost goes away at such a young age, you come home and you're so grateful for all these just monotonous things you get to do some days, but then there's that other side that you have to continue to work with and deal with, and it's tough.
And I was, like I said, I was so blessed to grow up. I was in a neighborhood, and I'm just spitballing it here, but at least 50 to 70% veterans.
Yeah,
you know, and another veteran, man. I'll just say his name is Al Siriego. He's no longer with us either, but man, he was a guy in my neighborhood. He had 2 Great Danes, and he was the sweetest man, and every time, very big built man. I mean, he was like a tank, you know what I mean? Like, but he had these 2 Great Danes, and they would come flying from another room. If you knocked on the door, ring the doorbell, you know, because we were just kids, we would ring the doorbell. We didn't know about his dog.
Yeah, they're horses.
But he took care of the neighborhood, man. I don't know how else to say that. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
But
there's order.
Exactly. And he was great, man. There's just so many others, right?
Oh.
And but those 2 guys stick out to me as guys that I look up to as a 12-year-old, as an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, 9-year-old, and thinking back as a 43-year-old man, is I want to honor those guys' memory, because they're no longer with us, right?
Yeah.
But where would we be without guys like that?
I speaking some other language. I don't know, man. I don't know. So, okay, let's throw the question back to you. What's your daily routine? What do you and the family? How do you guys kind of get down? What do you do?
I like to. It depends, right? So, a lot of the time, I like to start my day out with watching some sort of ceremony.
DC, wherever
Virginia, it's at. Yeah. If I can go somewhere physically, I like to do that.
Okay.
If I can't go somewhere physically for some reason, I like to watch something on TV so that I can get my mind right for myself on what it actually means for Veterans Day. You know what I mean? That, to me, I have to. It's kind of a weird word, but I like to keep it sacred. You know what I mean?
Of course.
You know, so
I don't think it's weird at all.
Yeah.
It's up to the individual who's here and free and their father and all this stuff. Like, it's
my whole life was impacted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my veterans, you know, my grandfather was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. My uncles are veterans. My cousins are veterans.
Family.
I mean, I've got cousins who were in the desert, in a theater, in a forward operating base where they saw things that I will never imagine.
Right. Yeah.
Saw their guys.
Yeah.
You know, and you come home to this world.
Right.
And you got to act like that never happened. You know what I mean?
Well,
Not that you have to, but I mean, that's what you got to go do, your normal, quote unquote, your normal job or your professional job now that you're out of the military, and you carry all that with you.
That's
you know
the hardest part about this whole thing we're doing, like the community. That's the hardest part, is to integrate back. You're at a level, and it doesn't matter what your MOS was. It does none of that matters if you're hooking stuff up to helos or whatever. It's like there's still this level of work, and you know, we call it work, but there's still this level of operating. And then you get back, and so when you're in a place like in your neighborhood, there was no such thing as messing with somebody's mailbox or disrespecting Big Al's dogs, or because everybody was accountable, and they'll go down to your dad, Mr. Galvan, and it's go time. So
if there was ever anything that happened that got back to Art Galvan, I would have been annihilated
real quick, right? So you're held to this standard, and then when you get back, what do you mean you're late? Right. I understand everybody's going to be a little late sometimes, but there's just certain things that the standard and then disrespect is like, it just doesn't happen. I don't care if you don't.
You know your chain of command. Right.
You
don't look sideways, speak sideways.
You go clean the toilet, and you go clean all 15 of them, and you do it without an attitude, you know? So it's like, that it's very, very strange to me to this day. I mean, I work with a lot of veterans, and it's like,
and we've talked about your work journey coming back, you know, and a little bit in different shows that we've had. But what I've learned kind of in my professional world, dealing with conversations I've had with veterans, and with just conversations about reintegrating people from their military service to the professional world, right, is that a lot of those MOSs, you said guys sign up and they're young, they're kids, they come out in their 20s and 30s or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the terms that are used in the military and the terms that the professional world use don't always translate. Like whatever your MOS was, right? You could have done a million things in that job description that you have with your MOS.
Oh, of course.
But how do you put that on a resume?
Yeah.
You know, how do you show people who you are as an employee, as a worker in the professional world? And we're helping veterans do that. We're helping say, hey man, you did more than 100 of these people. We got to help you put that on paper and show what you've done and how that translates.
That's the point. Or have an employer who goes, okay, I don't know what a 6348 does, but why don't I look it up? And then so you can just at least have some kind of educated conversation with the guy
Absolutely.
or girl. But giving people a chance, looking into it a little bit more is for sure always helpful. But I don't know if I had went into this when I got my job with the Corps of Engineers. When I got there, I'm a tattooed guy. They're friends of mine now and coworkers, but they were kind of like, no, we have a 2-year probationary period on first. What's that called? On first impression alone. They were like, look at this fucking weirdo. And I do understand that physically the way I look, but it did not take too long for them to see that, oh, okay, this is what it means to have that kind of discipline and structure and work ethic and stuff like that. Cause it's like, I don't know how to do this, but if you need a gopher to go get nuts and bolts or whatever, and I'm standing here going to listen the whole time. So again, we as the veterans have to bring all those characteristics home with us, because if I show up where Jason works and I'm trying to get a job and my shirt's not tucked in, I look like this bag of shit off the streets. That's not the same as going, thank you for your service. You're all squared away. Again, you don't need to be all squared away, but I'm saying there's a way you conduct yourself that puts you in a position to be looked at in a way that someone would be proud to come up to you and say, hey man, thanks for everything. Happy Veterans Day. So it's important too, man. It's how you conduct yourself too.
Absolutely. Now I'm just going to ask you this question because I'm ignorant to it.
Hit me.
Okay. Do you get any feedback from people that in your circle that you've served with or that that have a really hard time on Veterans Day?
A lot of, yeah. And I was saying that lightly earlier, but for the most part, unless they're going to their kids' schools, and there are some guys that can't do that either, because it brings up a lot of stuff and they don't want to be in public and share that emotional journey with people, or whether it be anger or sadness or whatever. They don't. They're not unfortunately, very unfortunately, not everybody that I know is
ready,
is in a way where they are ready for that stuff. I mean, we had a reunion, and there's some guys who everyone would have loved to see, and they just aren't ready for that thing, and it's been 20 years. So it's like everybody has their own time of doing stuff. But yeah, I think if I had to say most, I would say it's a good, but everybody's got kids now too. So
right.
The good number of guys probably would just stay in the house maybe a little bit.
Okay.
I would think. But every year people change, man. You know how it goes. When you were 20 to 40, you're a very different cat. So.
Absolutely. Do you know if, from your own experience, if the experiences I heard you say, but what about the heightened things? Do veterans need someone to talk to on a day like Veterans Day? And I mean that in a way like for mental health purposes, for letting someone know you're there if they need you, because they might be contemplating something bad.
I don't think that can ever hurt anybody, right? Checking in, and that's why I say the words check in, because generally, in my circle, it's a check-in text. Hey, brother, just saying hey. And then sometimes you get, fuck you, and the jokes will start coming so you can read that person right away. And then, this is going to sound maybe counterproductive, but to me and my guys, sometimes I think it's okay to let that day slide, because everybody deals with that thing different. And a few years ago, I was somebody that didn't deserve for anyone to say Happy Veterans Day. I'm just a piece of shit, destroying my own life and not being a good person. So I didn't want to hear about that at all. But I know that everybody just kind of handles things a little bit differently. Some guys want to go to work, and if I've got to work that day and the boss is going to let me go or whatever to go with the kids, I just want to go to work like everything's cool. So it's a tough question, man, because if you know someone personally, you generally get a sense of how they operate. And worst case scenario, you send out a text or call if you don't get an answer, and that does a lot more than you would think, just seeing Gomez texted me today. I know what he meant. I know what today is. This is pretty clear how this conversation was going to go. I just don't feel like it right now. Maybe tomorrow will be a better day. And generally, I hear from guys the day after, certain dates.
Yep.
So everybody's just kind of checking in, getting the vibe, seeing how everything's going. But, I mean, yeah, of course, if you know someone's not doing well, it's a good idea on days like that. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if there was an across-the-board answer. There just isn't.
There isn't.
Because Veterans Day and all of the I don't want to say holidays. They are holidays.
Remembrance days.
All the remembrance days are just like every other day, right? So I know I'm stoked about going with my kids. It's actually on the 10th this year because of the way the week falls.
Right.
I'm stoked about going with my kids, but that day could just have its own things arbitrarily. It might not have anything to do with Veterans Day so much. You might have a dream the night before. So, you know what I mean? So it's like every day, man, it is much like addiction. It is something that it pops in. It checks in with you too now and again. Hey,
yep.
Remember what today is, remember so-and-so and this and that. And you're like, all right, but you got to be able to kind of.
And what about the flip side of the guy or the gal, anybody, the person? When I say guy, I mean everybody.
I know.
That says, man, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything special. I didn't do anything. That is heard quite a bit in these circles. I mean,
I didn't do anything. I'm telling you, I don't. That's exactly how I feel. I know some guys who I would be honored if you would text them. I'm not talking to you. People
right.
would text them and go, "Hey, thank you." If those guys were sitting and they fill this whole place up right now, every last one of them would say, "I didn't do anything special." Tell him. And then he would point to Sanchez, and Sanchez would say, "Tell Fullerton." And Fullerton would say, "Tell Elrod." And Elrod, and it would go on and on and on, because these tier one guys and these bad motherfuckers that are out doing this stuff, and the guys over in the unfortunate thing going on right now, they're all just doing their job. And so to them, I am not special, and I don't deserve any recognition whatsoever. And that's just how it's like a humble, they
don't want the attention on them.
They don't need that. That's not why they did it in the first place.
Right.
So again, man, we're a weird set of people, man.
It's incredible, man.
We are a fucking difficult set of people to learn how to interact with.
But that's why you got guys like me that are going to say BS, man.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you anyway.
I'm going to tell you anyway, because I didn't sign up to do it.
Right. You'll never get an FU for that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. They're all gentlemen, and they'll all conduct themselves properly. And sometimes, man, it's like this. Thanks, I appreciate that. And I go back to the truck and go, that wasn't for me. That was for somebody else. Mm-hmm. But the deal is, and I've always said that people don't know everything, and you can't expect them to unless they know you. So just give them the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to be nice to you, at least, because they could say something real ignorant and blah, 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 and that could go real south for you. So it's like something is very nice to do, and leave it. It's okay.
Absolutely.
Can I tell you a story?
Sure.
Kids had the day off yesterday. I love the zoo, love animals. And we hadn't been for a while. So we go take the kids to the zoo. My wife and oldest daughter, after we walked around 15 freaking miles, we decided to get on the train and go see the stupid polar bear, the awesome polar bear. My wife and oldest are sitting in the little train car, the seat behind me, and there wasn't any open seats for a while. So this lady was sitting in the one in front of them by herself, and I said, "Ma'am, would it be okay if I sat here to the next stop with you?" She said, "Sure." So I sit down, and Alicia's like, "Hey, I think we're sitting with Marines." And I said, "Uh-oh, are we sitting with Marines?" And the gentleman in front of me was sitting with his wife. And he turned around and we started talking, and he was with the 26th Marines. I just did a little bit of reading on them. They were only active for a short period of time. These dudes, Iwo Jima, some real dudes. And so like happy, and so they felt like I could feel the luck coming off of them. And I don't mean that they didn't do their job as a Marine would who is trying to fight uphill. Folks, the fighting uphill is the worst case scenario. You in a tactical situation, you take high grounds and you're much better off. You're not going to win all the time, clearly, because we got Iwo Jima, but the way that he was talking to me, so at the zoo here in St. Louis, there are speakers the whole time you're going around. The conductor, one of the people on the train's telling you, to the left, you're going to see the penguins, and to the right. I know that his wife has been hearing about this. They had their 26 hats on. You know what I mean? So a wife of a guy like that has been hearing about this for 50 years, and she's sick of hearing about it. She says to him, hey, we're supposed to be listening to what's going on in the speaker about the zoo. And he said, babe, I've got more important shit to talk about. And I was like, oh, what a gangster, But the way that, and then so his buddy sitting in front of him, they were both there and they both were doing that. They turn around and then so we're chatting for a minute. They get to their stop and the woman I'm sitting next to, she's going to get up. So of course I let her out. I was going to stand up and shake these men's hand anyway. But they start, he kind of shook my hand and took it a little bit longer than normal. He said, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing a lot better now. I got all the bad stuff out of my life years ago. And, since then, everything's been great. And he said, man, you're here with your family, so you're doing something right. And it just and I was talking to Alicia about that later. Again, this goes back to what you were saying about how I did nothing. To imagine what those guys had went through, probably, they were probably 17 and went straight over there. I had a year and a half to train. You know what I mean? We were a very well-oiled machine when we invaded Iraq. It didn't work out perfect, but and then for them to, and so the other gentleman goes back to Alicia and he said, is he okay? And she said, he's doing great now. And, make sure that he goes and talks to somebody. And it was just all this advice of this generation so many years before me of Marines. And a lot of times that kind of gets muddled with oh, you don't know shit, kid. We were, but these dudes were so exactly who I want to be when I get to be that age, I think is where I'm going with it. And they were enjoying life with their family. And every day is not like that for them because who can imagine the shit that and Vietnam, I'm not taking anything away, folks. I'm just saying this particular interaction, these guys are just, again, holding themselves to that standard. Shirts tucked in our world, if you have belt loops, you have a belt on. And if not, you are wrong. And so they were still doing exactly what they were trained and taught to do all those years ago. And something, it was just really impactful, that whole interaction I had with those guys, and they wanted to keep talking. The train's trying to leave, and it was just a very generationally great experience. So when I think of Veterans Day, I want to shake dudes like that's hand, and everybody, but guys like that, to me, so I was looking up their unit and their motto, they called themselves the professionals, much like 2nd Battalion, 1st Marine. So we had that.
Man, what a story. Bro.
Yeah, we had that weird thing in common, but when they said Iwo Jima, and they went through so many battles, I'm sorry I forgot them all. I just don't like to read on my phone while we're podcasting, but these guys were just kids, much like myself, but you don't, again, being humble, I have no clue what those guys, Korea guys, Vietnam guys, we are completely different people, and we're not. It's just that we are.
But there's one word I could use to tie that all together. It's called the brotherhood, man.
Yeah, of course.
Cross generations, man.
Yeah.
A couple generations apart, right?
Cut from the same cloth. You
guys are a brotherhood. I mean, they're looking out for their brother. They're making sure you're okay.
Yeah. Because again,
and how selfless, right?
Dude, they didn't even want to do the zoo thing anymore. They were not worried about what their wife wanted. They just wanted to talk and make sure I was okay. So I told them about the museum, and Alicia brought it up. And most importantly, they were just happy. I mean, obviously they are still active in the community. So hearing about all the suicides and stuff, it was nice that instead of going, yeah, we're having some pissing contest with these guys who I can't even be in the same arena as, they were just worried about me and my family, you know, and that's just something that I will be someday, you know, and I can't wait for that, because it rejuvenated me a little bit in the sense of like, it's still good to be a Marine and a veteran and American and all that stuff. You know, it was a really neat interaction with some guys that came way before me, but not all that much different, you know.
Man, Dom, thanks for sharing that. And, you know, before we close here, I just want to, I'll give you the last word, but before we close here, I just want to say to all the veterans out there, thank you so much for everything that you've done for our country, for our communities, because really you come home to these communities where you have to interact, integrate, be a part of, and we couldn't do community without you. We couldn't have our freedoms without the things that you've done. So from the bottom of my heart, in all sincerity, thank you. And Dom, I'll give you the last word.
Folks, he is very sincere. Jason is a very special guy with a very special story, and it's not that he doesn't want to tell it. I don't want anybody to think that. It's just it's a topic that we're going to come across organically, but and I don't push him on it. But when you hear what his father's done and how much it impacts me personally, I just know that I know your dad would be very, very proud to have his story told and to be sitting in this museum. So take my word for it when I say Jason is very serious about his views on veterans and what he's doing and why he's here. To go off on my own, and Jason, I'm talking to you too, it's kind of weird. It's not weird. I think of it as a little bit weird to tell other veterans Happy Veterans Day, because to us it's like there's a gratitude, but it's a mutual understanding. It's this mutual respect, and it's if I could put it into physical, it would be a nod. It would be a what's up, brother? You know, it would come off like that a little more for us guys. So, of course, I'm very grateful for all you guys that came before me, with me, and after me. That it's awesome, and I think we all know what I'm trying to say here. To you civilians, go ask one of the veterans you know, and they'll explain what I'm trying to say. But I'm so in this phase of life about taking care of myself, and that doesn't mean I don't need help. That doesn't mean I don't need to talk to someone. And I'm saying the physical activity, the diet, all that stuff, because guys, I'm just telling you, if I can do this journey, I know that anyone can. I mean, the whole deck was stacked against me on this one. And it was just the same amount of discipline, perseverance, and hard work that we all know. And if you're a spouse, you do all the work for us. So, like, please put yourself in this conversation. But it's about taking responsibility for ourselves and acting on that to get us into a lane that we're happy to be at our kids' school. And we're happy for all these people that come say Happy Veterans Day. That's my only thing to kind of try to get across here, is taking care of yourself and doing what you can do is just as important as anyone telling you Happy Veterans Day or Happy Memorial Day. It's up to us too. It's up to us to hold ourselves to that standard as best we can. I make mistakes constantly, but we got to do our best. So, of course, I hope everyone has a Happy Veterans Day. I'm so glad you guys are at home. I'm so glad that I can call you my brothers in arms and fellow countrymen. Nothing makes me more proud than my time in the Marine Corps, my affiliation with this great museum, this podcast, Jason. It's all very humbling, and it makes me very, very thankful and grateful. So if there's something you can do to try to find this level of gratitude and gratefulness that I have, find it. It's out there. Start a podcast. It's a great way it's therapeutic in and of itself. I feel better just sitting here talking to Jason for an hour. So thanks, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day. To those that aren't with us anymore, trust me, we haven't forgotten about you. And I always try to say, do something nice for somebody. It'll make you feel better. Folks, we will talk to you soon. Coming live from the St. Charles County Veterans Museum. I always say that wrong. Veterans Museum. Thank you very much for tuning in. Again, hit us up on Facebook or Spotify. Leave us some comments and tell us what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, and we'll do our best to fix it. But thank you very much. Have a good night.
And this has been the Dog Tag Podcast from the St. Charles County Veterans Museum. The Dog Tag is brought to you by the St. Charles County Veterans Museum. The museum is a 501c3 nonprofit business. Do you like our podcast? With your support, we'll continue to bring you great programming. If you'd like to donate, go to sccvetsmuseum.org and click on Donate.